Hey everybody, Fishman here. Welcome to another video, which is going to be all about taking that live food you collected and culturing it in a specific way so that it is no longer a danger to any of the fry or fish that you're going to feed it to. Now I'm going to get to my method in a minute, but if you look right in the middle of the screen, you're going to see two female cyclopses, both with two big batches of eggs, which is excellent. That's exactly what I want to see right now because in short order, they're going to have a bunch of babies each, and even though I've never really managed to get thriving cultures of cyclopses before, I'm going to hope that one of the methods I'm doing today or in the next little while will end up resulting in that because I really like them as a small fish food. So for those of you who don't want to sit through 12 minutes of the explanations for this, in a nutshell, what you're going to do is subculture. And I'm going to show you two different methods, and in between I'm going to show you some microscopy to show you the kinds of things that are present in the raw cultures when you first start doing this. And then by the end, you're going to see much more pure cultures, which is the process that you want to go through. Now, the reason for this is, depending on where you catch or collect your live food, if there are fish present, there are sometimes pathogens, parasites, that sort of thing, which are intermediaries in various kinds of microorganisms. Now, it's not very common, and I know a lot of people who have fed just straight from food they've collected from various places, and I've done it myself, and I've never really had any issues, but it is possible to end up, introducing some organisms that you don't want in your fish tanks. So what I do is I take a culture, the one that you saw actually just before this, and in this particular case, what I'm doing is I am using free-floating algae as my culture media. It's one of the ones I showed in the beginning. And I have just taken some clean, clear water. I think it's RODI water. And I've added some of that culture media, and then I just mix the two together. And that is as simple as that. I mean, it's done. And I'll let those two grow, and then afterwards I will do it again and again. And eventually, because you're only supplying a certain food, those pathogens will no longer have the extra source they need, the extra thing they need to, like, in other words, the fish. So they won't be able to continue the life cycles, and you'll end up favoring specific organisms. In this particular case, what I'm trying to do is get a lot of Paramecia and Cyclopses and Daphnia. But as you can see here, there are still some other unwanted things in here. These Stentors aren't really dangerous to your fry or fish, but I don't want them in the cultures. The reason why it's a little shaky right now is because I did not put a cover slip on this, and you'll see lots of other stuff going by as well. Once I put the cover slip on, which will be in the next clip, it unfortunately squishes them down too much and you don't get to see that movement as much here. I mean, they're going to try and do that, but they can't. These are a little bit larger than the Paramecia and other stuff that's going through here. And like I said, it's just, they can't move at all. So as you can see, in the cultures currently, there are a number of things, including nematodes and a bunch of other stuff. Now, I had, I think, about 4 or 5 methods initially, and I think I've added another one now. And I'm going to show you how successful they've been, and also I'm going to show you, as we get closer to the end of this, I'm going to show you what the cultures look like now. Now, to start off with, some of them didn't really work out too well, and I'll get to that actually. But if you look in this here, this is just pure RO water, which I have added yeast to, and then of course inoculated with the various organisms I want, which is the Paramecia, the Cyclopses, and the Daphnia. And you can see there's an awful lot of things flitting around in here. Plus, as you can see, a couple of larger things, which are some water bugs, and I definitely don't want them. So I'm going to use one of my screens that I made a little while ago, and I'm going to just pour the culture through it, and then those larger organisms will just get filtered out. I am going to keep them, believe it or not, because I want to see if they do get any larger and possibly identify what they are. But for the moment, I just want them out of the actual cultures I want, because I want to use these for feeding fry. I really love using Paramecia as a first food for fry, especially obviously the smaller ones. Even guppies will eat them though, so it is something that is beneficial. Cyclopses are also quite amazing for that. And of course everyone knows about Daphnia. So what I'm going to do here is, this is one of the cultures that wasn't doing terribly well, and I'm just going to rinse those guys off into that, and I'm just going to keep them. Just like I said, I just want to see how they grow. I wasn't terribly thrilled with how this one was going, so it's no loss. And that's, like I said, I just want to, it's a curiosity thing. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to move on to subculturing the ones that I'm actually interested in. Now, the ones I started on with yeast are one of the two that are doing really, really well. So I'm going to take those and I'm going to subdivide them again. So I'm going to end up with 3 of them. And I'm going to take one of the one of the free floating algae cultures, and I'm going to add a bit of yeast to that as well. I want to see if that will augment it. So I think at the moment I've got more than a dozen of these cultures on the go, and I just, like I said, I just want to try out as many different things as possible. If you see right in the at the top screen in there, I just put on top of it, I did order some red-tailed fairy shrimp and some Daphnia from a company, and I tried that out, just a small amount of each of the packets. The red-tailed fairy shrimp hatched out, but they all died off relatively quickly. I'm going to need to do something a little bit more elaborate, I think, than these jars for them, and I am going to probably work on that sometime in the near future. Again, this is just as straightforward as all the other ones I've done so far. I'm just going to pour these back and forth into each other, and in the end there'll be enough organisms in each of them to again populate. And then I'll take these 3 or 4, I guess actually it'll just be the 3s. I don't think I'm going to use the other one. I just want to see if it will help perk it up or ramp it up, whatever you want to call it. And then I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to take these 3, I'm going to make 4, 5, 6, and I'm going to eventually, whichever method works the most is going to end up being the one I'm going to keep the method going with, and hopefully I'll keep about a dozen of these. I will at some point in time probably get an aquarium full of this going, but I want to do a lot of subculturing. I want to make sure I get really good cultures out of all this and not end up with, like I said, unwanted organisms. So this is pretty much the method. It's very straightforward, and by the time you've gone at least through 3 or 4 of these subcultures, there is really nothing left in here other than things that are going to feed on whatever the material you're using. In this case, yeast, and the other one, free-floating algae. So if they require a fish host, they're going to simply just die off. And if they have a cyst form where they can go dormant for a while, this is also going to prevent that from being a real possibility, because you are diluting them out, and over time you can just decant off instead of doing the swirling method I'm doing right now, and you end up with them being left behind. So that's also another way of getting rid of that sort of stuff. So the one on the far right, I just poured a little excess off there because I don't want any of that to go into these, and these are going to stay as pure RO water with just yeast and the cultures. I'm going to show you them again as this progresses. This is the other one that's really quite promising. This is just a bunch of grass, dried grass, that I have put into a jar with some of the culture, and I'm going to see here in a second. So this one here is relatively new, and there's not much in there but paramecia. But those clouds you see there are paramecia clouds, and that is awesome. That's a nice thick culture. I wouldn't feed this directly to any fry because that water is a little anoxic, and it's not the kind of thing you want to dump in. But this is the other one here that has Daphne in it, and as you can see, it is teeming there as well. I'm going to continue working with this particular way of culturing. I have actually added one more to that, which is I'm using, instead of grass, I'm using oak leaves, and I'm still going to see how that goes. This is the cow manure one, and it's a dud. There's nothing in here. Well, there's not nothing in here, but it is nowhere near what I would want for a culture. It has to be teeming for it to be effective. Now this is the oak leaf one. It is too new yet to give any kind of verdict on it, but I do see stuff moving around in there, and I'm hoping it's going to take off just like the grass one, because I actually have collected an awful lot of oak leaves last fall, and it'd be a great way of using them up for nothing else. And also be really quite convenient. Otherwise, I'm going to have to go and get some hay, which is fine because it's June and the haying season is pretty much now. So I should be able to get a hold of some. So the last ones I'm going to show you here, if I remember correctly, are the yeast ones after a little while, I think. No, sorry. This is still just the straight algae culture one. This is the one that I ended up dumping the extra larger, well, I think they're water bugs. You can still see them running around in there. This is fine, but not good enough really for a culture. It's acceptable to pour in an aquarium, but I need that nice thick cloud of stuff. And these three, I think it's now been about 2 or 3 days later, and you're going to see here shortly, they are doing really quite well. The second shot is actually the best one I'm going to show you here. It's kind of funny. No matter how you do this, you always end up with one or two that are doing better than the others, but that's just fine. So there you go. This one here is doing really nicely. And again, I'm going to continue doing this. The rest of this will be shown on Sunday vlogs from now on. And the last clip I'm going to show you is going to be what these are like under the microscope. And as you can see, they are just teeming with paramecia. Now, there are obviously other organisms in there because you can see Cyclops and Daphnia, but this is the part I really wanted to see. I wanted to see how well they're doing. And it's getting to the point now where it's not quite a pure culture, but it's getting close, and I'm really, really happy about that. So let me know what you think below in the comments, and this should definitely get rid of any issues you guys think you have with adding pathogens and that sort of stuff into your aquariums, and it's definitely something you need to be concerned about. So, thank you very much for watching. I will see you in the next video, and bye for now.